So welcome to the Management and Marketing Strategies to Increase Your Profits webinar training. My name is Tim Stokes, and to kick off, I'll just show you some of the webinar contents. We're going through the 3 core skills of profitable management. If you wanted to learn how to be far more profitable in the managing of your business, what are those 3 skills that you need? How to motivate your staff and make them more accountable. A lot of employees love the sound of that, the feedback I've had. What difference price rises makes your net profit and how to raise them risk-free. A lot of people have a concern. If I put my prices up, I might lose sales, and they have a concern about that. The 7-step organic strategy implementation process. I found that by working with business owners, I've tried a whole lot of things that some have worked, some have not worked, and I've found through trial and error and sheer a scientific approach to testing and measuring, there's a certain way of growing businesses that I've developed over the years. I'll show you what that is. What numbers to show employees weekly? It's an age-old question. Should I show my employees numbers, or should I just keep everything a secret? I believe you should show your employees certain numbers, and we'll talk about what they are a little bit later as we go. So you get some real clarity on answer to that question, because there are many benefits to show your team, your employee, what those numbers are, and I'll show you what those are a little bit later. And I like this one, how to get off the tools, and in other words, out of sales or out of production to work on your business more, or set your business up to work without you. So the question is that something that you like the sound of? I find business owners, they're often running that busyness. They're very busy all the time, and a lot of time it's because they're very much in that production, the technical side of their industry. They're working in there with a lot of their time, and they never really leverage out into the management of their business. So I want to show you how to do that and what sort of things you need to keep in mind to achieve that outcome. So that's a bit of a summary of what the webinar is all about. So snapshots of growth results. I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of phenomenal results with clients over the years in wholesale, retail, manufacturing, service businesses, all sorts of odd industries that people have never heard of, very common industries that are highly competitive, and pretty much everything in between. From running public marketing campaigns, it's pretty much whatever type of client turned up is what I worked on. Didn't matter what the industry was. I didn't go looking for specific industries. So these are a few snapshots of clients that I've worked with over the years. The first one was a builder that got stuck at that 2 million turnover and they couldn't get over it. Maybe you relate to that a little bit, where you're stuck at a level and how do I go to that whole new level? How do I get to that next step? How do I really add some growth to my business? And for them, they added about $1 million in growth in 6 months, and that was focusing on 3 core strategies, some of which I'll touch on in this webinar. This one here with Milton, he's a plumber up the Sunshine Coast, came through the training in last year, and his net profit increased to $120,000 in 1 quarter. It's like saying about $480,000 in a whole year. And now this business was only turning over $750,000. So to get that in 1 quarter, it excited him, and it got me excited because I love seeing those sort of results with my clients. The next one was Wes, who was running at a loss, near bankrupt, and building industry is a very tough industry if you're running at a loss because cash flow is often so tight, and he turned his business around to make it very profitable and grew sales at the same time. So it's like a $320,000 increase in profit turnaround from a loss into the positive profit. And this other one, I just threw it in here, is Shane, that was a client of mine way back in Sydney in 2001, because he's the first client that said to me, I don't want to work at all, Tim. I really don't want to work. I want to have a better life and not have to work and not even work in my business at all. Can you help me to achieve that? I said, that's a very good question. I haven't done that before with clients, but let's work it out. Let's do it. And we did. We set it up to run completely without him, put an ex-Coca-Cola manager in that was considered old because he was 52. Coca-Cola thinks anything over 50 is 50. Anything over 50, is old. So they put him off. Financially independent guy, didn't need to run any business, didn't need a job, but he liked the idea of running a little kitchen company. And because we put the systems in place, he could do it. And I've helped a number of clients to achieve that outcome over the years. Now, I don't know if that interests you. I found it's only a minority of business owners like the idea of having a business that they don't have to turn up for working at all and receive an income that's what you call a passive income without working. But if it is, there is some content in here that will help you to achieve that outcome. Here's a couple of what I call continual growth results, where clients have kept growing and growing and growing beyond what I've helped them to do, which is what my role is. My role is to set your business up to empower you with all the skills, all the tools, all the strategies, all the systems you need to take your business to any level you like. So this is a kit home manufacturer in Western Sydney. He was a client of mine in 1999 when I was doing a lot of one-on-one business coaching. And his turnover was $6 million, and he called me in 2010 to touch base with me just to say, hey, how's it going? Business is good. What's happening in your life? And he's making about $6 million a year net profit. It's a pretty healthy business, and to grow at that rate for that period of time, he's done really, really well. This is a company in Brisbane, south of Brisbane, out Yatala Way, and they're a waste pumping company. They've doubled their turnover every year for 4 years, which I think is actually quite achievable for the majority of businesses. They're running an 18% net profit margin, and they're now at 25 million turnover, looking to go to 50 million turnover this financial year. So that's a good result, where they came in when they were turning over less than $10 million, and they just maintained that rapid growth ongoing with a very high profit margin. It's a sales service business to charities, and what they do is they provide those people that may knock on your door and say, hi, we're from such and such a charity, would you like to donate some money? And that's what they provide, that service to help charities in Australia. They came into the training turning over about $20,000 a week, with about the $1 million turnover, and they were 4 times more than that in months, in less than 12 months. And their net profit margin's running pretty high as well. And that business is still kicking big goals. They're still growing. They're opening up all across the country, offices, Sydney offices, Melbourne, going northern Queensland, and they're still growing at a rapid rate with a big smile on their face and enjoying life, which is what I think it's all about. So here's some examples of some of this content. I just want to give you a bit of a feedback on this content works. In my early years of working as a business coach with clients, I found that they'd grow while I was talking to them. I'd step away, and then 2 years later they go back to where they were, and it frustrated me, and I wanted to know why that was and to stop that. I thought, they paid me good money, let's maintain that growth. And I found that by changing people's mindsets and some of their belief systems, I could do that. I changed the way they think, therefore the habits become natural, as against just saying, do this, do that, and then they stop doing it because it's unnatural for them in their thinking. It's a very interesting point that I'd like to make on that. So let's talk a little bit more about all this subject. Where did I learn to do all this? People say, where'd you learn to do this, Tim? I say, well, I'm a curious kind of guy, and been around business a lot. Started about 30 years ago. I've had 7 different businesses. I came across a smart guy called Michael Gerber. You may have heard of a book, which I recommend you write down right now, called The E-Myth Revisited. It's called The E-Myth Principle. The book called The E-Myth Revisited is all about how your business doesn't work hard. That's why you need to. So you can set your business up to work hard so you don't need to, and that's what his information is about. And that changed the way I thought about business from that point on. Jay Abraham was one of my mentors. He was the top international marketer, the highest paid marketer in the world for 20-something years. He used to come to Australia and run workshops, and he teaches stuff that very few people in the world even know, let alone master. And I was learning this in the early 1990s and putting it into my businesses and making a lot of profits and doing what people consider impossible as a result. Worked as a contractor for 25 years, and I found it became very obvious in one industry, these 25 different businesses, why some were successful, some were extremely successful and growing fast, why some were struggling, and why some were going broke. It became really obvious to me that the industry isn't the determinant of success, but the mindset of business owners is. And that was very eye-opening for me when I moved into this business coaching arena in 1997 and started helping business owners with whatever problem they had. I'd say, what do you want help with? And they'd say, Tim, I've got no time, or I haven't got enough customers. And whatever they said is what I used to work on. Then I trained 35 business coaches internationally. My intellectual property is published in national business books all around the world. I've trained 500 plus business owners, trained, coached, mentored, whatever the terminology you prefer, 500 plus clients one-on-one. And therefore I know what works and what doesn't. I don't teach theory. I have processes that explode profits rapidly, set businesses up to run without the business owner, and solve the common challenges like time, money, staff, having a life, those sort of things that we often don't think enough about in businesses, solvable problems that we have. So that's sort of where I learned it all, and I got to test things. By working with so many clients, I tested my marketing principles that I'd used in my own businesses very successfully in the 90s and dropped them into clients' businesses and watched them increase sales by hundreds of thousands of dollars within months, and just saw this rapid growth as a result of what I've learned. And I thought, gee, it works in that industry, what if it works in another? And I kept finding these strategies worked pretty much across all the industries that I worked with. So that's a little bit of my background. Now, if you've got any questions at any time, feel free. I'm happy to answer questions as we go. I'll assume that you don't have any if I don't see it pop up as a message. But that's a little bit of my background. From working with these business owners, certain things just kept coming up all the time. And I've been a student of success. I study the masters. I find the best people I can find, and I become their student, and I learn from them. I pay them lots of money. Spent a lot of money in my life just learning from the best people I could find. And one of them is this subject called management. I wanted to really understand, what is business management? How do you manage a business? There's a guy called Michael Eisner, for example, who is in the Guinness Book of Records, is the highest salary earner in the year at $200 million per year. That's a pretty good salary. I don't know about you, but I'd give up my business for a while. I'll probably go back to it, but I'd give it up for a while if they wanted to pay me that sort of dollars to go and manage Disney Corporation, because that was his job. The general manager or CEO of Disney Corporation. And I got to thinking, why is it that someone can be paid that amount of money, yet he didn't work from Disney Corporation as an employee and graduate through all the ranks? Just like most public companies, they go and recruit CEOs to run the company from outside the industry. Now, why do they do that and then pay them millions of dollars? That subject got me curious as to why. I got fascinated with that question. And I found that management comes down to 3 core skills, and everything is like a sub-skill of those. One is people. People is the least developed skill in business. Your employees are people, your customers are people, your suppliers are people, the people you may be in business with are people, you're married to people or in relationships with people. People is what business is. If you take the people out of the business, there's not much left to grow. So why aren't we studying psychology for years before we go into business? I find it's the least developed skill out of all the skills in business that you can have. There's a lot of different skills or sub-skills under these 3. People is the least developed, yet that's the one area that I've had clients literally explode their growth. Their profits triple, quadruple in months just from focusing very, very strongly on their skill. The second one is measuring. And that's being really good with numbers and understanding relationship to numbers and percentages and looking at profit and loss statements and looking at balance sheets, building spreadsheets or looking at spreadsheets and using spreadsheets and understanding conversion rates and profit margin. All these sort of things is the terminology of, or the language of measuring. That is a separate skill, obviously, to people. The third skill is systems. What are the systems that we need to create so that our team can use them and our business becomes more profitable? So I focus on these 3 skills in the training that I do. It's just become a management training program, but I synergize the 3 of them. I say, let's quantify the people, because people are doing the work in the business, not just machines or equipment. The people and how well those people use that equipment or those tools determines your profit. Let's quantify the people. And so that's what we do. And then you start to see some people work better than others. And if you've employed a number of people over the years, I'm sure you've seen a big difference between one person's skills or output and another. And that's just interesting stuff, but it's also very, very common. What I've also found, if you measure for a period of time, you start to realize that either you don't have systems or the systems don't work. So measuring reveals that, obviously, that, wow, we need systems, they're not working, or I need a system for that. And even better, when you introduce a strategy, which is a system if you like, it's a way of doing something, like a lead generation system or a conversion rate strategy is a system, then you can quantify it or measure it and say, did it work, did it not work? That sets up a feedback loop which is show the people that are doing the work that that strategy actually worked. So there's the arrow drawn between people and systems for that reason, that the people might be doing the work, but the people are as good as the systems. All right, so time to reflect a little bit. McDonald's is one of the best companies in the world. They've been going for a lot of decades. They're extremely profitable cash cows that just throw out cash, and business owners don't have to work in the business. That makes it one of the best businesses in the world, and they charge you the big bucks to buy into the franchise for that reason, because they know it's a proven system. You will make a great return on your investment for buying a McDonald's franchise. And they have developed these three skills to a very high level. When they first started out, because they're in the restaurant industry, they had expensive employees that they paid high salaries to because they were specialists that they needed to do the work. Then they measured what they did, then they systemized what they did, then they got lower skilled people. Now, it's been decades of evolution where teenagers now run multi-million-dollar turnover businesses at very high profitability, and the business owners don't work in it at all. So if we can take this way of people, measuring, and systems, these three areas, and really improve our skills in it, we can set businesses up to do a similar thing where it works very, very effectively and efficiently and profitably without the business owner having to be there all the time. Now, I don't know if that appeals to you, but when was the last time you took a 2-month holiday while you've been a business owner? Or 3-month holiday? Or took a holiday for a month in the middle of the year when it might be busy all the time instead of at the end of the year? When was the last time you gave yourself a decent pay rise? Or are you paying yourself more for the hours of work that you do than any employees by 2 to 1? These are the sort of things that can happen as a result of putting these skills in place. And that's what I want to share with you a little bit more as we go along now. Talk about a couple of these. I want to talk a little bit about people, a little bit about measuring, and the synergy of all three that when combined increases profits rapidly. All right, there are 7 key areas of business that I like to work with business owners on, because I found that even though they may think they only need one of them, I found they need all 7. I've tried ignoring some of these, and the businesses grew for a little while, yes, but then they went back to where they were because certain things hadn't been in place. It's like a recipe that you must follow. If you take some of the ingredients out, it doesn't tend to work very well. The first thing I found that I need to do with working with business owners, and if I skip this step, I didn't get very much progress. I found I have to do this first. Let's talk about a vision for what you're trying to do in the business, and then share that vision with your team. And then that creates this commonality. We have things in common, and when you have things in common with a person, it brings you closer together. So commonality creates unity, and being clear of what you're trying to achieve is the first step to create that unity in a business environment. The second thing is we want to do team building because it enthuses the team to change. And I found that very few business owners have put really good strategies in for team building, and as a result there's a whole lot of symptoms that you get as challenges and problems and staff issues and inefficiencies and customers getting let down because this hasn't happened. So that's the second thing I've found. Even though it doesn't always make a lot of money initially, some people it does, it's such an important strategy for the next one, which is measuring. We need to measure the performance of all the employees in the business and then find out what's working, what's not. And when you measure something, you can improve something. So let's find those obvious ways to increase profits from measuring and get the facts about your business. That's the third step. The fourth is where we plan based on what the numbers have been showing from measuring. We find which strategies work for the business, which ones don't, and we prioritize those strategies into an order of what we're going to implement first. Obviously the one that makes the biggest difference first, but did you know right now there are 50 plus brilliant, proven, highly effective strategies that you can use in your business to increase your profits? Every business has at least 50, and I like to give business owners their 50 in the training that I do. I'm going to share some of those with you today, but planning is about putting those strategies in place. Which one's going to work the best? Let's do that. But you can't identify those strategies until you see the numbers. Very, very hard to do. And while we're planning, we need to be thinking about putting these systems in place. We need systems in every business. Every decent-sized business over a couple of mil will have comprehensive systems so that all the people in the business are using them. And sometimes we have them, but we can't get people to use them. That's part of this mix. The sixth step is marketing, and marketing to me is about warming people up to contact your business. They like the look of your company from the website or social media or wherever it is that you promote your business, and that warms them up, and then when they talk to you, they're already pre-warmed. They're warmed up, pre-sold in a way, And then they have a good chat to the people in your business, and then as a result of that conversation, they decide to buy. And the salespeople are what convert them, not the marketing. The marketing just warms them up and gets their attention. So that's the sixth strategy that I like to do. The seventh is setting the business up so that as a business owner, you're working on your business 3 to 5 days a week in that role, and management is a full-time position in virtually any business over about $750,000. There's so many things that you could be implementing that increase your profits, and that's what management's about, managing the whole business, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we go. So these 7 strategies, a lot of people say, Tim, I need more customers so I can make more money. And they're talking about step 6. So I say, how many customers do you have now? And they often can't answer. So what's your conversion rate? How many people do you talk to that you want to get more customers? Well, we can convert more of the inquiries. What's your conversion rate? Not real sure. What's your net profit margin? Not real sure. And often I lose people that could be part of, sometimes I lose people there because they don't want to learn about measuring, and they think it's all about, I need more customers so I can make more money, and that's what they're struggling with. They don't know how to do that. So that becomes a challenge. So I found that if I do any of these out of order, I've had a client once that said, I need more customers, Tim, and when I asked him about his measuring, I found that he was already running at a loss. Now, if you're running at a loss and you go and get a lot more customers, you go broke really quick. So why are we going to even think about doing that? We can't do that. You don't want to just get more customers. It's a process I always follow now. It just works really, really well. So this is my 7-step organic growth formula. Learn these 7 subjects, put them in place, and increase your profits very, very quickly. And I call it effortless profits because there's no effort in doing it when you follow these 7 steps. You don't get stressed out by things that don't work or things that work too well and then you can't handle it. It's just a nice J-curve growth by following all 7 of these. All right, so building your vision, define what you want to achieve in business is a key. What do you really want to achieve? And decide on what it is from a turnover perspective, your salary and net profit, and decide on that for 1, 2, and 5 years. And then share that turnover with your team. Without that clear vision of what you're trying to do in your business in 1, 2, or 5 years, you're often going to struggle to get your team involved with growing the business. You need to get your team involved in growing the business, and that's why we need that clear vision. We get lost in our present day and present time with too many things that fill up their day, but we're not actually making real progress. It's so easy to fill up your day with too many things to do constantly, but if you look at a 6-month window, how much progress have you really made? And as I showed you a bit earlier, a lot of my clients are making progress in weeks. We're measuring change and numbers improving in weeks or a month or 2, not a year, not that slow, because they're working on this level. So we're not motivated to change when we don't have this clear vision. So by determining what your turnover is, say, in 1 or 2 years and sharing that with your team, you get them more motivated to change. Share that with your team. It gives them more purpose and enthuses them to adopt the changes that are going to be necessary for you to grow your business. So people skills and team building, let's touch on that a little bit. So people skills comes from understanding behavior of people. And as I touched on before, we need to have a psychology training or an understanding of people. Why do people do the things they do? People skills gives you the ability to determine attitudes and to know who you can trust. So if you know who you can trust as far as employees, you know that you can take time off. Now, trust is a very interesting word that a lot of business owners feel they can't trust people. They can't trust advisors, or they can't trust whoever, or they can't trust employees. Trust is a very interesting word. Now, I've found there are people in this world that are very trustworthy. There are people in this world that are untrustworthy. I can pick them very accurately and very quickly which ones I can trust and which ones I can't because of my people skills, my understanding of why people do the things they do. And I'm seeing that with attitudes as well. So I look at a person's attitude and determine whether they have a great attitude, whether they're willing to learn, whether they're teachable, and if they are, them and myself are going to have a phenomenal, profitable relationship, because if people are open and trusting of me, I reward them with big improvements in their business. I say, look, this just works. I could spend an hour explaining it to you, or do you just want to give it a go? They say, all right, if you say it works, I'll do it. And they do it, and they come back with a smile on their face. Tim, that was fantastic. You're right. I see what you mean now. That was awesome. I didn't believe you, but I trusted you. I did it, and yeah, well, I've had a great result. I go, great. You are unique and in a minority, because most people can't do that. They're too skeptical, too doubtful, too fearful, and that's a lot of sometimes past history in their own personal life that gets in the way of growing their business. So in business, you can get people that you can trust. It's just a matter of figuring them out before you hire them in the interview process. You don't want to find this out after you hire them. You need to know before that. So great attitude employees don't need to be asked to do something twice. There's a simple example. When you ask an employee to do something a third or fourth or fifth time, and it's a reminder for them, I'm questioning why you're bothering, because to me, with my experience around attitudes, you're wasting your time, because they really don't care about your role, the role that they have in your business. They're not that fussed about it. So that's why you're reminding them. And I've found with my clients, when they start describing these sort of scenarios, I think it's time you thought about replacing them. Oh, yeah, but they're okay in other areas. I go, yeah, but their attitude is pulling the rest of the team down. And then through a bit of a conversation, they often put those people off. And then a month or two later, we have the same conversation, say, yeah, you're so right. I couldn't see it, but yeah, you're so right. So this is a simple principle of people good attitudes. Another one is a yes people. You say, can you want to talk about this? Yes. Or can you try this? Yeah, okay. They don't go, why should I? Or what for? Oh, yeah, but. Their first response is yes, okay, let's do that. And that's what I find entrepreneurs are like that as well. So these are really important subjects. Here's an online tool for team building to increase profits. You may have seen disc profiles before. If you have, just say, yes, I've seen disc profiles before. If you can type me a message, that would be very interesting for me. I'm always curious about this. I find about 4% of people have actually seen disc profiles, but the majority of people haven't actually ever seen it before. So D stands for dominant, I stands for influence, S stands for steady, C stands for compliant. That's your DISC. So the D's and I's of the world, the outgoing people, they're the ones that I find they're good at multitasking. They're very good at doing things at what's the word? Simultaneously. They can do multiple things simultaneously. They can do this and this and this. They love to start things. They start things. They start something else, they start something else, and they kind of juggle them all at once. That's kind of your dominant influence. Whereas the compliant steady, they prefer to do one thing at a time, make sure it's done properly, have a schedule, work that schedule, have a plan, finish, quality control, and you can see that they're very different to the dominant influence people in how they go about doing their work in a business environment. And then you go this way, the D's and C's are what we call task-orientated, the I's and S's are people-orientated. So these people more prefer to work on their own in a business, whereas these people like to work with people. These people tend to like talking to people, so they're often better in sales. These people prefer to be doing more independent work because they're task-orientated. So in business, it's such a good thing to know because there's a natural skill set that comes with each profile. Some people are naturally good at sales. Some people are naturally good at production. Some people are naturally good at being leaders. Some people are naturally good at being followers. Some people are great with skills, as in high-quality technical perfection, doing things at a really high-quality level. That's typically your C's and S's, whereas D's and I's are more quantity-oriented, not so much quality. And so that's the focus. So in business, knowing each person's profile is important. Knowing the profiles of your potential customers is extremely important because then you know who you need to be when you're talking to them. People tend to buy from people they trust or relate to, and if they don't like you or don't relate to you, you'll find that they'll rarely ever buy from you unless they don't have another choice. Take that the opposite end of the scale, and you're far more likely to buy from people you do trust and relate to and like to talk to. So in sales, this becomes such a phenomenal tool because you're good at selling to 1 in 4 people, which is the person just like you. The other 3 can be a little bit annoying in a sales environment to you as a customer, and vice versa when you're selling to people. People tend to sell just based on their own disc profile. They behave in a very congruent way with their profile, but that behavior is kind of annoying for the other 3, and that's often why we're not getting as many sales as we can in a business. So each profile has strengths and weaknesses, and knowing your own helps to grow your business faster. You'll find that you use something like DISC profiles in leadership. How you lead a D is very different to an I, very different to an S, very different to a C. How you teach each one, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses. People become very predictable when you know things like their DISC profile. It becomes a very, very powerful tool to know. So I've had clients, by teaching them how to recognize the DISC profiles of people phoning them in to do quotes and then going to see them to do a price or give them a quote in their home, by teaching them this, I've had clients triple their sales in 1 month from just teaching them this one subject. In fact, I've had that happen more than once with clients where they tripled their sales in a month by teaching them how to sell using DISC profiles. It's a phenomenal tool. Good for recruitment, good for everywhere. It's been around for how long? Nearly 100 years now. 90-something years it's been around, DISC profiles. So it's not new, but most people are not familiar with it. And it's something I highly recommend you check out and look into. And team building by profiling all your team and talking about it is a very powerful thing to do as well. Makes your team a lot happier. So let's talk about that. Happy people are more productive people. Do you work better when you're happy? Do you find that you think better? Do you notice that your employees tend to think better? When you get in that happier state of mind, you see things that you couldn't see when you're in a stressed or pressured state of mind. There's just things that you miss. So in a business, what happens is people have to work in a confined space. That's what a business is. You have an office or a premises or something like that. And by working with these people on a regular bit of time, well, straight away when people have a different DISC profile, they get a bit irritated with each other. What do you think happens in a business environment when you give that a bit of time, like say 3 years when they didn't get along too well when they first met and it really hasn't gotten any better? Maybe it's got some worse over a period of time. So you may relate to what I'm saying. Maybe there's someone that you know that was a bit irritating when you first met them and maybe they're a lot irritating now that you know. Maybe you've had a relationship like that, a personal relationship like that sometime in the past. But this is kind of a fact of life that people that we spend time with can get to irritate us over time. So in a business, that's kind of the opposite of what the fact is. The fact is happy people are productive people. So people are unhappy with other people. That's affecting their work output. So what do we do? Well, if we DISC profile people and show that around, including your own, and have everyone DISC profiled, you'll start to get along a lot better because you understand that people are not deliberately annoying. They just happen to have a DISC profile that's different to yours. Or even better yet, I highly recommend you get every one of your employees, whether you've got 5 or 50, get them together, have a chat every week and share your points of view. You'll find that people get happier when they get listened to and where they get to talk about their point of view and their situation. They get happier when they do that. So if you run this sort of a strategy in your business, this is what I call a management strategy or a team building strategy, you'll find there'll be greater harmony in your business and your team will become happier, and naturally, without saying a word, their productivity will increase. I had a mechanic up the Sunshine Coast that DISC profiled his team, got them together, had a chat about the DISC profiles in a meeting at the start of their day on a Tuesday morning, and he said, my productive hours went up 50% in the next week. I said, well, that's a big jump. He said, well, yeah, that's like 50% more work done, which is 50% increase in profits. I said, that's a pretty big increase. It's a very big increase. He said, and yeah, he saw it in his cash flow, increase it enormously. So there's a very good tip that I recommend that you do in your business, and do it every week, not just once ad hoc and then not do it again. Keep doing it. All right, so hopefully you're keeping up. It's a bit hard to talk when there's no two people talking back, so hopefully you're keeping up with me. If you've got some ideas, if you're starting to think about how you can put that in place, hopefully you can, and you can put these things in place and watch the difference happen as a result. So next subject is measuring. That's the key to increasing profits, is let's measure your business. But we're not really measuring the business. We're measuring the people in your business doing the work. Measuring reveals opportunities to improve and increase profits fast. That's what it does. It finds ways to improve. And if you haven't measured it, you can't improve it. It's an old saying. Measuring proves the need for systems So your team will start to use them. Your team start to get on side. Excuse the typos there. But your team start to get on side when you start to measure, and then they say to you, well, boss, we can see from this measuring that it's not all about us. We need some systems. And then when you put systems in because they've realized that you need systems, then they start to use them. They start to use the systems more because they've recognized the need for them. Therefore, they want to be part of using them. Measuring shows you what new strategies are working and creates motivation to improve. You find out something works, doesn't always work as well as you like, but then you go, what if I tried this? And then you try it and then it works a lot better. So it gives you that feedback loop to scientifically, using facts and figures that don't lie or assume, what's working and what's not. Measuring each individual employee's performance. If you do this, watch it improve. If you measure 3 salespeople's conversion rate of how many people did you talk to, how many of them bought, and then compare those figures to each of the 3, you will see a big improvement in their sales figures pretty much instantly. In the next week or 2, you watch it jump. Now, these are things that increase profits in a business. That it's very, very important. So measuring people, not just measuring activities of machines, but quantifying the people, what people do in the business, is a way to increase profits rapidly in any business. All right. Now, I want to share with you something that's very, very important. It's the most important thing that you can understand in business is what I'm about to show you. Because this is something that takes place over a fairly long period of time, over years, and people don't know that they're not making progress. And you may feel this sometimes when you worked hard all year. Christmas comes, you have a bit of a break, and you go, what have I achieved this year? And you look back and maybe there's not as much growth as what you would have liked, yet you've worked hard, you put in the hours, yet there's not those rewards. What happens in a business is, over time, the turnover will increase. Majority of businesses, it's kind of increasing, and over time it might reach that $2 million turnover. It started at $500,000. I'm not sort of from startup, I'm just sort of saying, well, let's say that we start somewhere along here, and we're at $500,000 and we go to $2 million turnover. Well, what happens is the net profit's probably increasing in the same time frame, and the net profit started at $75,000 and a $500,000 turnover, and it went to $150,000 on a $2 million turnover. But the most important thing about this is what's happening with this figure, the net profit margin. Now, the net profit margin is the percentage of turnover that the business is trading with. So if you divide 75,000 by 500,000 or divide it into that, you get 0.15, which is 15%. If you divide the 150 into the 2 million, or the 150,000 into the 2 million, you'll get 0.075 or 7.5%. So what's happening is, even though the sales are going up, the profit margin is going down. It's not proportional, and therefore this business starts to struggle with cash because there's not much cash in the business as the margins are going down. The cash that's left is a lot lower. And this starts to create some real dilemmas in the business environment. And you say, well, I've worked hard, my turnover's gone up, my profit's gone up. Why haven't I got any money in the bank? Why am I struggling to pay my bills, my invoice, my tax, my GST, my BAS? Why is this happening? And that's because this figure is not being watched, this net profit margin figure. So that's the thing that we want to look at in a business. So the primary aim of a business is to increase it. That's what we want to do, not just increase sales, but increase the net profit margin. So low margins equals low cash levels. So here's a snapshot of a website that I'll show you in a minute. And if you've registered for this webinar, you would have got a book on a URL that you can download that talks about what website you can go and look this up. But these are benchmarking figures, which means these are figures that an industry or businesses have, where manufacturing is turning, with businesses turning over between $500,000 and $750,000, the net profit margin is 2%. In the same industry, when the turnover reaches $1 to $5 million, then the net profit margin is 5%. But if you notice, there's not some big figures here. You're not seeing 12 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 30%. You're not seeing these bigger figures. That's because they're extremely uncommon. So businesses, and if you look at the figures, these are typically decreasing here. And on this website, you'll see that a lot. The net profit margins are going down even though the turnover is increasing, as per the previous slide. So net profit margins, when they're below 15% and the turnover is up to that 700,000 figure, usually means that you're running out of cash. You struggle to pay your basic invoices, your basic needs, and cash flow is low, cash balance in the bank is low because of these different reasons. So that's the website you can go and find this out. It's good to look up what your own industry is, but these are kind of the facts of business, that net profit margins are low in the majority of businesses, and if they're low, they're going to have cash flow problems. But the cash flow is the symptom, it's not the cause. The cause is the margins decreasing as the business grows in time. So hopefully that's insightful for you. Maybe you're thinking, maybe that explains a few things in my own business. I get a lot of business owners say, yeah, I used to have 30 staff and now I have 5 because I'm making more money at 5. That would be an example where you've been in business 20-something years and you tried the higher turnover growth, made less money, had more stress, had too many staff, thought it was all too hard and thought, no, I'm going back to where I was. And then you go back to where you were, but you're not having the freedom that you might have had at the bigger size turnover. So this is a very important thing that we need to think about. So then it begs the question, well, how would we increase our net profit margin if it's low? And I'd encourage you to go and find out what your own business's net profit margin is and think about it. If it's below 15%, that's probably going to create some cash flow challenges for you. So let's talk about increasing your profits without spending money. I have a few different processes that I show business owners to do this, but here's one that I'll show you. Hopefully I don't lose you here. I'm going to get a little bit technical here. In business, we need to have a minimum sale price, which I work on a minimum net margin or a minimum gross margin, and the two have a relationship. I want to identify what that minimum sale price is. And the way I do it is to start looking at their chart of accounts, their profit and loss, and find out what should be a cost of sale, COS cost of sale, and what shouldn't. And by identifying what should and shouldn't be a cost of sale, we end up with a new gross profit figure. Sometimes there's some adjustments in there, and then we're working out that's the sale price that we have to sell at, and we can't sell below that, because if we sell below that, we're not making the minimum profit margin that we really need to do. So if you've got any questions about that, let me know. But in how chart of accounts are set up, they're rarely set up really effectively with a lot of thought and a lot of consideration. And it does take quite a bit of thought and a bit of discussion, a bit of analysis. It might take an hour or two to even work this out. And this is something I do with my clients that I work with in my training. I go through their profit and loss statements and identify what should be cost of sale, what isn't, and say, all right, based on this being a cost of sale, not that, therefore this is your minimum sale price, and let's sell at that as a minimum. Now, I've had clients increase their profits rapidly from just doing this exercise because they had no idea how to price what they sell. They thought, well, I don't know, that's what people charge in the industry, that's my sale price. And it's a guesstimate that there's a bit of cost in there, but they're not actually selling it with a system. It's not a systematic approach. Now, in a service and manufacturing business, your technical staff, your tradies, if you like, your qualified people, your technicians, they're a cost of sale because their salary costs you money. That's called a cost of sale. You have to have them to do the work, so therefore it's a cost of the sale. So we need to consider them as a cost of sale, and then when they do the work, we need to quantify how much time they spent doing the work and multiply that by their labour rate to work out what the actual cost was for them to do the work. And then we say, well, we sold it might have been 50% gross margin. How come we're only made 45? We made a loss on that individual job. And therefore, by segmenting your business into job-by-job analysis, you find very rapidly what's making you money and what isn't. The other thing we do is I want to segment the business by a type of work that it does. Some businesses do one type of work, some businesses do different types. But within an industry, a business does different types of work. So an accountant might do tax returns, they might do business development, might do company returns, it might set up a trust structure. They're examples of types of work that a business does. A landscaper might do rock walls, it might do turfing, it might do fencing, it might do concrete curbing around the garden, so it may have 6 different production types. But I find that the vast majority of all businesses have between 5 and 15 production types, that we just segment the business into these types, and then we find what the gross margin is on these different types. Once we've done this, this is a fourth step, then we'll look at how do we increase conversion rates on production types or just get more sales coming in the door from increasing conversion rates. And we're going to set this up as a way to risk-free increase our prices. And we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go. Then the fifth step is to increase our marketing, get the leads in the door. Now, I'm a bit of an advocate that people find this a bit hard to grasp sometimes, that if your profit margin's low and you're turning over $500,000 or $3 million or $2 or $5 or $10 million, if your net margin's low, and I consider 10% or anything under 10% low, then why are you considering spending money on marketing? Because marketing is not the reason, or lack of customers is not the reason the business isn't profitable. It's because the business is unprofitable irrespective of marketing. So I'm a big advocate of let's get the profit margin up to 15%, then let's market the business once we've got that surplus profit, because we've got a lot of money to spend on marketing once we got the business to that level. So how are you going with this process? I'm not sure if you're following me. I'd like to think that you are following me, that I'm not losing you or you're not understanding what I'm saying. This is a little bit technical, yes, but if you can grasp this concept, and some of my clients can't grasp it before they become clients, and they just trust me with this, but if you can grasp this concept, you're learning something that's considered rocket science, because very few businesses are really doing this, and that's why their profits are increasing slowly, not rapidly, like some of my clients are adding $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 to their net profit in months. It's just explosive what difference it can make. Yes, it is a little bit hard to get your head around sometimes, but if you can hang in there and grasp some of this, and it might take a little while to grasp it, then good for you. Well done, and watch what happens when you do. All right. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm doing with growing businesses under the heading of sales and marketing, but not so much marketing, more about sales. So here's a business. This is a real-life spreadsheet from a real-life client that's currently doing the training course with me right now. And what we've done is collated 8 weeks of data here, and this is normally a week, but I've just added up to say what are we doing year to date, and it's about 8 weeks, 7 weeks actually, but let's say it's 8. And what we're seeing in that 8 weeks is we've got a total sales. This is sort of tracking all the inquiries of the leads, how many leads we turn into quotes, how many of those quotes become paying customers, and it's tracking these sort of figures in the business. So what it's doing is revealing all sorts of opportunities. It's turning over about $211,000 in sales in that 8-week time frame, so about $100,000 a month roughly. So what this does is it reveals to me, I built these spreadsheets and give them to my clients, customized them for them, and said let's put your numbers in and let's see what happens. So what it does, it shows all sorts of things. Conversion rates is one of the most interesting subjects that I love looking at. So you can see here it varies from 100 down to 33. That's a very big variation. And it's averaging 61 per the whole business. So I find that very interesting. So that's something that I want to look at. I want to look at, well look, here's the website. It's under the heading of Internet, he's called it, but that's the website. He's running a 42% conversion rate. Now, compared to his 61, it's actually very, very low. So I'm sort of thinking, maybe we need to redesign the website, or at least have a look at it to say, is your website old? Because that conversion rate, your website, remember, marketing needs to warm people up, and then salespeople convert them. So maybe we need to warm people up better so that conversion rate increases from the marketing. So that's saying that to me. It's also saying that the trade referrals at 77% is very high, because this is another business referring work to them. And that's a fair chunk of income they've had. They're doing $16,000 in about 7 weeks, nearly 8 weeks. Almost $2,000 a week is coming from trade. Why couldn't they go out and do more trade work? Why don't they go and have a chat to a whole bunch of tradies in their area and get more referrals from tradies? Because it's work you do once, doesn't cost you any money, but it just takes a little bit of time. Go and meet a whole bunch of them, give them some cards, have a chat to them, build some rapport, and that could increase very easily that figure, that volume of sales there as well. Orion compressors, I like to look at that. Why? Because the conversion rate's 40%, but there's a fair chunk of volume coming through here which we like, and that volume could be increased. Now the fact that the referral percentage or the percentage of sales is not that high says we could go and talk to them and educate them a little bit more about what this business does, so that conversion rate increases as well. And when I talked to the business owner, I said, have you ever invested in sales training? Have you ever trained the people who answer the phone what to say, how to say, and try and convert more of those inquiries? I said, no, never. In fact, I've never measured conversion rates before I met you. I didn't know how, didn't even think about it, didn't see the need for it. I'm starting to see the need for it now. And then I looked at this with his business. He's got 4 different salespeople, so I segmented this in this spreadsheet, does this automatically, and we said, well, salesperson 1 has a 55% conversion rate, salesperson 2 a 36, salesperson 3 88, salesperson 4 84. Well, hang on a second. If we've got an 88 and 84 from 2 of the 4, well, it must mean it's achievable. So we've got to train these people here to do what these people do, or we need to get some training in here. So I did some basic math on this and worked out if we get these other 2 people to the figure that these 2 are doing. Remember I talked about disc profiles and people are naturally good at some things and not others. Well, this is an example of that. If we train the other 2 people, even not all 4, to sell better, answer incoming phone calls, handle price objections, all that sort of stuff, they could generate $94,000 more in sales in that 2-month window. It's about $600,000 a year in sales turnover just from doing some sales training. Now, when I showed this to the business owner, what do you think he said? Well, he had a good attitude. And he said, Tim, when's your next sales training on? I want to come and attend. I said, good decision. So he did. So he put 3 salespeople in here. That's all he could handle at the time because he couldn't take everyone off the phone. He had to leave some, so we've got to train some others at another time. But I said if you don't hit 84% by these 2 extra people, I'd say let's go and get a better aptitude person that can hit these conversion rates because we already see it's achievable. So let's work on that. So therefore, a strategy might be recruitment, a strategy might be team training, a strategy might be accountability. It can be all sorts of things. But this is an example where I look at measuring as a tool to find ways to improve numbers to increase profits. So if you've got any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them if you've got any questions right now. No? If not, I'll continue on. But this is just sort of giving you some insights into how I grow businesses by measuring. Measuring reveals the opportunity. And when I see a number, I've got a lot of ways to increase conversion rates. So sales training is one of them. We'll touch on that in a little while. So measuring reveals incredible opportunity. So the other thing this business has in this particular example, because different things come out of different businesses that I measure, it takes 1 day on average to know if they've won a sale or not. Now, not many businesses take 1 day on average. Now, that's an average of 8 weeks, 7, 8 weeks in this business. It's amazing that someone would ring a business thinking about spending $1,000 here. Here's our average, $1,000, and yet they make up their mind in a day. That's effectively what it's saying. Now, most clients I've worked with over the years might wait 2 weeks to get a decision. So 1 day on average, that's pretty interesting. So what it means is we can test. We could say, well, let's put our prices up for 3 days in the week, and let's find out whether we lose sales or gain sales as a result of putting our prices up. So you can find out by testing things. This is where you start to have some fun with numbers. You test something. Okay, we know what our conversion rate is. Let's put our price up, see if we lose sales, and that conversion rate figure will drop if we do. That's what will happen. So that gets interesting. Notice here that Google AdWords, they're spending a fair chunk of money, and whoever is doing this is doing a really poor job because it's generating very few inquiries into the business. So that says to me, whoever is doing it is doing a really poor job of management. They're not doing a very good job because they're not getting the sales coming in the door. So the measuring is about to reveal that. Trade referrals is pretty huge. So why aren't we doing more? Because we've got high volume, we've got a high conversion rate. Therefore, that says those numbers say our strategy needs to be, let's go and have a chat to a lot of those trade referrals. Drop in and say hi. Drop in and say thank you for the referral, something, and that will increase very easily. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to segment this business into what I call production types, the type of work that the business does. And the type of work, as I touched on previously, could be anywhere from 5 to 15 different types of work that it does. Sometimes it's more than 15, and it doesn't matter, but I do a bit of one-on-one with clients in this area to say, well, let's identify what the types are that you do. For example, a landscaper has 6. I've found accounting firms typically have 5 or 7 depending on the practice. Different industries have different amounts, but I typically want to segment it, and then we track sales by a production type, and we look at conversion rates by a production type. And you can see by the type of work this business does, yes, it has 100% conversion rates, but it goes down to 49% by a type of work that it does. So that's interesting. Why is this type of work 49%? Why is another one 100, another one 100, another one 93? Why are we getting this big variation here? So this asks a lot of questions that we can go and investigate, and there's always reasons for every number. So why don't we go and find out why the reasons are, and then we'll find a whole lot of other things that we can improve in this business by doing so. So as this is segmented into sales by production type, conversion rates by production are known and can vary. They vary here from those figures. So we can actually test prices on every individual line now and see what happens if we put the prices up by 10% and see what it does to the conversion rate by all the different ones of them, one at a time. Just measure it. Now what's extraordinary, I've done exactly this with hundreds and hundreds of clients by saying let's measure, now let's raise prices, let's see what happens. And in 99% of cases they've lost no profit, none at all. 0. No loss of profit at all from a price rise, and yet it affects the net margin the most, and their margins are typically way too low. So they're struggling with that. They're struggling with profit, yet they're scared if they put their prices up, they're going to lose too many sales, so they won't from their fear. And yet, from my proven results, there's no evidence that substantiates the fear that 99% of businesses don't lose profit when they put their prices up. So that's an interesting question for you. When was the last time you put your prices up in your business? And are you concerned by a potential loss of sales? Well, this is where you can take the fiction out and put the facts back in to find out what's going to happen. All right, so I want to give you some sales conversion rate tips right now that can explode your profits. Whenever you answer the phone, I recommend don't say the word speaking. The word speaking drops your authority. And then when someone talks to a business and whoever answers the phone, they like to feel that they've got a leader that's going to lead them and help them. And when they say speaking, well, they're kind of pointing out the obvious that it's that person speaking. Now, this is a very, very subtle thing. People don't think it matters at all, but I absolutely guarantee you it does. Now, I've had clients just from taking that word speaking off increase their conversion rate 10% by combining it with a nice friendly greeting on the phone. A lot of people don't give much thought to what they say when they stop the phone from ringing and what those words are that come out of their mouth. But I guarantee you've rung a business yourself and in the first 10 seconds felt like hanging up because you didn't like the person and the way they greeted you when they answered the phone. I'll bet you've had that experience yourself because everyone else I've talked to pretty much has said that. So if that's the case, well, this is an example where you could be okay in saying it, but why not really impress people by your professionalism when you answer the phone? So if one of my clients, and I don't give my mobile out to prospects, but I give them the clients if I'm working with them, I'll say, if they ring my mobile, I'll say, hi, I go, thanks for calling, this is Tim, or I just say, hi, this is Tim. I never say the word speaking because it drops your authority because you're pointing out the obvious. They know you're speaking. You don't need to tell them you're speaking. And don't add, can I help you on the end of it. So the best way I've found to answer the phone is this. Thanks for calling, or thank you for calling, business name. This is first name. Thanks for calling Profit Transformations. This is Tim. And that simple way of answering the phone can increase your conversion rates 10%. Now, if you increase your conversion rates 10%, your turnover has just gone up 10% and your profits have just increased 10% because all costs stay the same when you increase conversion rates. Ask questions when people call. So instead of answering them, this is what people do. Oh, hi, I'd like to get a quote on such and such. How much does that cost? The worst thing you can do is actually give them an answer and give them a price because you've encouraged them to be price shopping and you've encouraged them to think that price is the most important thing. So I say don't answer that. Just ask them a question back. And you'll find that when you do that, they feel like they're being helped. And you'll ask them, first of all, how they found you or whether they bought from your industry before or bought from your business before. Ask them some questions. Train your team on DISC profiles. I've had numerous clients increase their sales 20 to 50 to 100 to 200 to 300% in 1 month just from focusing on learning DISC profiles. Whoever answers the phone, learn DISC profiles. Put some guarantees in against frustrations and fears. What does the average consumer in the marketplace have as a fear or frustration about your industry, not your business, your industry before they call it? I'll give you an example. Trade services. If you ring a trade service and they say they'll come out to do a quote, are you absolutely certain they'll show up and absolutely certain they'll turn up on time? Unfortunately, the answer is typically, no, I'm hoping they'll turn up, and if they turn up on time, I'll be surprised. Well, what if you guaranteed that you'd be on time, or you're paying $50 cash if you're outside of 15 minutes of the agreed time? Do you think that would impress people that rang the business? The answer to that is absolutely, because I've been using this simple strategy in advertising and websites for 20 years, and it works extremely well to guarantee something simple like that. Not every industry needs it, but some industries benefit enormously from addressing the frustration or the fear that customers might have. This is a big one, which is simply, why should I buy from you and not your competitor? And it's about defining your uniqueness. USP stands for Unique Selling Proposition. Why should I buy from you and not your competitor? Simple question, but most people can't answer that question very well. People say, Tim, why should I buy from you and not another business coach or a business trainer or a management training company? I say, well, because they won't give you the finished how-to systems that I will to do all this stuff I talk about. They'll discuss things with you and leave you to create it yourself. They won't give it to you as finished systems just to implement. I could answer this question as many, many ways, but most people can't answer this question very well, and that's often why you're going to compete on price, and that stops decent margins. So how do we increase margins with a price rise? Well, price rises will increase your profit margin. That's what we want to do. So if your net margin is 5%, I like asking this question because I haven't had anyone get it right yet, because it's such an unknown subject. Very few people know the answer to this, so I love showing it to business owners because they're actually shocked and stunned at what difference it makes. What do you think your net profit margin would be if you raised your prices 10%, if your net profit margin is 5% now? It's a very interesting question because I thought for years, and I was taught by a mentor once that, well, if you put your price at 10%, you increase your profits by 10%. That's obvious. Oh, okay. And I believed that for a lot of years until I did the numbers myself and worked it out. So another way of saying it, let's say we've got a business that's turning over $1 million and the net profit margin is 5%. That would mean the net profit is $50,000. So what we're saying is, if we increase the prices by 10%, what would the new net profit in this business be? That's the question I'm asking here. Now, a lot of people say, well, the net profit would go up 10%, so it'd be $55,000. Some people have a bit of a guess that it might be higher, but they don't know how to do the math. But here's the math outcome. After the price rise, the net profit margin would be 13.6. Therefore, 13.6 of our $1 million turnover is $136,000. Now, that's kind of a 200 and something percentage increase in net profit. That's an enormous increase in net profit from one small price rise of 10%. So few business owners think about price rises, and yet look at the difference. It's almost triple the net profit. 5 to 13.6 is an enormous increase in profit. Comes down to the question, what's more important? Marketing, which increases sales, or turnover, or net profit? Simple answer is profit is what pays your salaries, not turnover. You can bank $1,000 from a sale, but if your net profit margin is 5%, $950 will go out of that sale and go in costs and expenses, and you're left with $50 out of $1,000. So when you're saying I need to make more money so I can by getting more sales, well, you're only getting the tiny amount of profit from a sale, and that's your percentage is what you're getting out of every sale. So it's something we need to get very, very clear of. We need to increase our net profit margins in our business so we can afford to pay the employee or two to free up our time and have a life as a business owner. Have I got your attention? Have I got you nodding your head thinking, yeah, I think I need to be thinking about a price rise? And it comes back to what's your net profit margin. That's the figure that we need to start with. All right, so increasing net profit margins without marketing dollars. Let me show you some ways that I do this with businesses. The first one is I want to segment into our production type. So here I've segmented in the 80-20 rule. 80% of what we do isn't that profitable, 20% is. And by measuring, we found out the net margin on this 80% is 3. The net margin on the 20% is 12. Funny enough, it's the same amount of profit, and these are net profit figures, so therefore it's like working 4 days a week and you make the same money in 1 day a week doing this type of work as what you did 4 days working in that sort. So what our profit and loss statement would show is $48,000 on our $1 million turnover, and that is a 4.8% net profit margin. Now, if this was your business, I'd like to think that you'd say, well, that 12%, I need to do more of that. I need to chase that work. If the phone rings, I need to say yes, whatever it is that they say. Can you do a quote today? Yes. Can I get you to do a quote tomorrow? Yes. Whatever they say you do. That will win more of that work. If you specialize in it with your website and just put a bit of an emphasis on your homepage, your website, specializing in whatever it is, you'll find that people want to deal more with specialists and generalists, and you'll increase the volume. So just by focusing a little bit more with your sales, with your marketing, not doing more of it, just emphasizing that element of it, that 12%, you can turn that 20% into 80% of your turnover. So you can go from the 200,000, which is the 80-20, to 20-80 if you like, and turn that into 800,000 at 12%, and then say, I'm not going to do this at 3% anymore. My minimum is 5%, and then make that figure minimum and 20% of that. And what we're seeing here is the net profit is now doubled. The net profit margin has gone up significantly, yet because the turnover is the same, we haven't had to get more customers. We haven't had to spend a cent more on any marketing whatsoever. We haven't had to hire one more employee because the same amount of work is being done in the business, yet we've got a lot more profit. That's a salary that you can pay someone, and that full-time position could free up your time as a business owner enormously by using this principle. So what stops you from doing this same thing is the question. If it's as simple as this, and it is, because I've done this with, lost track, but a few hundred business owners, I've taught them how to do this. And this is, I've had clients do far, far higher profit margin increases than this. The highest I've had is a quadruple. I've had clients quadruple their net profit margin, go from 4% to 20-something in 6 months or so, and explode profits like enormously, yet their turnover hasn't increased very much at all. The thing that stops people knowing how to do this is they don't know how to measure accurately to work out these figures. That's what holds them back, and that is a bit of rocket science in knowing how to do that. Sometimes you can do this yourself, and I'll talk to you about how I can help you to do that a little bit later. So people say they haven't got time. It's one of the biggest objections you can get. Oh, Tim, I'd love to do your training, but I really haven't got time. Well, there's two ingredients of freeing up time. Time doesn't increase from doing nothing, obviously. So there's two things we need to do. The first thing is we need to increase your net profit margin. The second thing is we need to get better with our people skills. If we get a higher net profit margin, then you can afford to pay extra staff, one extra employee that somewhere in your business will probably free up a lot of your time. And net profit margin gives you the ability to do that. And it could be in sales, it could be in production, it could be admin, it could be finance. But in one of these areas, I'll bet you're doing the majority of your time will be in one of these areas. And typically, for the majority of businesses, in production. So if that's the case, why couldn't we hire a very smart production person, or just hire another one and spend a couple of months training him with better people skills? Because the next people skill is getting very, very good at teaching. Teaching is a skill we don't tend to learn as a business owner. But if you can teach everyone in your business to do what you do as well or better than you, what happens when you can? Well, if you teach everyone to do what you do as well as you, you've kind of made yourself redundant in that position. But only if you can afford to pay someone in that position or two to replace you. So that's where this is a way of solving this particular challenge. So manage by measuring. What happens in a business is a business needs to be in balance. You've got to win work. Let's call that sales. You've got to do the work because that's what you're being paid for. Let's call that production. Then you have to get paid for the work that you do as well, which let's call that cash flow. All three are equally important. One's not more important than the other, yet business owners have typically spent 5 to 10 to 20 years being an expert at learning production. They're qualified, they've got trade skills, they've got degrees, they've been mentored by previous bosses, they've had work colleagues, they've spent enormous amounts of time learning this, yet they've usually never had sales training and they usually haven't paid for marketing training. Yet that is as important as this. Why are business owners being trained in this? They don't see the need for it. They're great at doing the work, they just can't get enough of it and they struggle. And they may be good at getting the work, may be good at doing the work, not very good at getting paid for the work. So think of this as like a three-legged stool where the leg length is the dollar figure of the business each week. So that dollar figure needs to be the same. We've got to win more work, we've got to get through work, and we've got to get paid for work. And if all three legs aren't equal, then what happens is we get out of balance. And if we get out of balance, we start to stress. Now, I call this managing a business. This is managing a business. A P&L is kind of over here at the cash leg because you haven't finished the work yet, so that's not that leg, and it's definitely not this week. It's over here. But a P&L is out of touch with what the sales are doing and the leads are doing and how much work's been done and what's the dollar figure of the work being done, whether it's finished or not. That's production. So a P&L is over here once a month. But it's not telling you what's going on here on a weekly basis when legs are getting longer or shorter as a result. So what happens is you react to the business stressfully because of the ignorance of not knowing these every week. Does that sound interesting? Is that something that you can kind of appreciate and get your head around? Now, I'm not sure what industry you're in. I know what some of you are. Some of you, I've got no idea what industry you're in, but some industries this isn't relevant because these three legs may not be like that. For retail doesn't have a production really. It's a different way of looking at it. But there is this still balance principle going on. So what I've done is I've taken this nice simple concept of saying let's measure this every week and then turn that into a nice graphical representation tool where we're saying, well, our legs are the green, the blue, and the black, and that's sales, production, and cash flow in. And let's look at the numbers of the business. So the wide green line here is the dollar figure of sales. So in sales, we can see this dollar figure over here is our scale. And that's the dollar figure for that week, dollar figure for that week, dollar figure for that week, and dollar for that. Same with production. Here's how much work was done in the week, dollar value, dollar value, dollar value, dollar value. We're seeing 4 weeks at a time. So we're comparing this week with this week with this week and then going, what's the overall trend of the three? Now, the narrow one here is leads, the number of leads, and notice that that's decreasing. So what happens, do you think, in a business if the leads have continually decreased for 4 weeks in a row? Well, what's going to happen is the business is starting to decline in sales. Now, if you don't know that your business is declining in sales and you've got a full production team and your leads have dropped and kept dropping over 4, 6, or 8 weeks, you are so overstaffed that you're going to chew up cash and run out of cash in the business because you're overstaffed for what work you have available. So what have the banks been doing in the last 2 or 3 years? Putting off staff. Why? Because they don't have the volume of work, so they just put off 3,000 people in one go or 500 people in one go because they're tracking their sales, going sales are down, put staff off, otherwise we'll run out of cash. And if you notice, they're downsizing, but they're hitting record profit levels. Interesting. Smart management. Sales are down, volumes are down, we're doing less home loans, but our margin, gross margin, that's what this narrow blue one is, our gross margin is actually increasing. Therefore, we're having higher net profits because our turnover is down, but our profits are up because we're working on margins. That's what the banks are doing. Are the banks smart? Absolutely. They're very smart when it comes to management. That's why there's such big profitable machines in the world scale. They're big profitable banks because they're smart when understanding management. So what happens is when businesses don't have these weekly numbers, they're never in control of their business and therefore it controls you. You're busy and you haven't got time and you're doing sales and you're doing production, admin and finance and there's not much management going on and you react stressfully to what the business needs you to do and it's not a good way to be. Whereas when you track with your figures with something like this, you see where your business is at any time and you print this out and you show it to your team. This sort of graph is great to show your team and say, team, this is where the business has been. Look at the trend of the last 4 weeks. This is what you're doing in your department or your department and your department, and then they can take more ownership and be more accountable for what the business is doing in their area. That's called teamwork. That's how you grow businesses. Make them accountable, let them know what the business is doing, see where they need to improve, and make decisions based on that. It just solves so much drama and problems in a business to do this. So hopefully you like the look at that. I've had some clients that are good with spreadsheets, and they look at that and they start drooling. They go, oh, I'd love to have that. My business so needs this. So if you don't love spreadsheets, you're not living, I say. But if you don't love spreadsheets, you may not get excited by this, but maybe you just grasp the principle. And that's what most clients are like when I start talking to them. They're sort of grasping these principles, saying, yeah, I can start to see I probably need something like this, which is great. All right, so you're putting all the strategies together. This is another tool. It's a what-if scenario tool where I want to show you how small improvements in numbers, key performance indicators, can increase net profit by $250,000 and do it rapidly. So here's a business that's turning over. I've just picked one similar to a lot of the clients I've had, turning over about $1.5 million. I work with clients sort of under that, and I work with clients over that, but so I'm going to pick that as a bit of an average, if you like. So $1.5 million turnover, and what we're going to do is change these areas here. We're going to improve with strategies in these areas here. These are our start numbers. These are our outcome numbers, and by working with these small improvements in our lead to quote conversion rate and do less quotes for people that aren't going to buy, increase our quote to sale conversion rate through sales training, things like that, increase it from here to here. Don't change this average dollar sale, but we're definitely going to put a price rise in because it's a low net profit margin, and we're going to increase our production by measuring that and finding where we're not making money in production. We can increase that as well. Now, without increasing leads at all, by working on this with a bit of sales training, we can then increase this area here with maybe some basic price rises. The profits can really jump. So if you look at this, the net profit from these percentage increases has gone from 105 to 260,000. That's a pretty extraordinary increase in profit. And to do this, if you look at what happens up here as well, by qualifying who they do quotes for, which is a very important thing in sales, they've saved themselves 7.5 hours a week. So they can do more quotes in the week. And if they can do more quotes, they can win more sales. They don't need to hire another salesperson, yet their turnover has also increased from 1.5 to 1.98. So their turnover has gone up 480,000, yet they don't need to hire another salesperson. They need to hire 1.5 more production people to go from 1.5 to 1.898. Now, this is what I do with a lot of my clients, and not only do I do it, I even show them how to do it. And when you've measured all these sort of numbers, and some of these you can get off your profit and loss statement, but when you know the numbers, you can play with the numbers, and that's called management. Management is about increasing numbers when you know what they are. And when you do that, this sort of explosive profit is very achievable. And as I said at the start of this webinar, I had a client at 750,000, and we added 120,000 in their 1 quarter. That was the increase in their net profit in the business. His net margin went from like 2% up to about close to 20%. Explosive increase in his net profit. Doing these sort of things, very simple things to do. When you know how, everything is easy, and I'm just giving you the know-how of how to do that. So summarizing the webinar here so far, if measuring people and systems, that's what I've talked about a little bit. I've touched on a little bit of how to do that. And when you put the 3 together, you run your weekly team meetings, talk about numbers in your team meeting, you'll find your profit margins will definitely go up. I talked about how prices affect your margins the most. You want to get your margins up. I don't know what your net margin is, but I know from applying these strategies, I've had clients at 18% go to 24%. I've had people at 5% go to 15%. So you can definitely increase margins, and it just comes back to using these sort of strategies. I talked about following that 7-step organic implementation process. I'll touch on that a little bit as well. Talked about DISC profiles. It's one of the best strategies I've ever found that increases and grows businesses fast. You can go and get yourself DISC profile online. Not very hard to do. Management we touched on is about measuring 3 areas, which is sales, production, and cash flow. So would it be okay, or would you like to know how to put all this into place and increase your profits very simply, very, very rapidly? Because if I can show you how to increase your profits rapidly and you start to see that it works, then I'm a very small investment of your return on your capital. And that's what I want to be with everyone I work with. If I can make it a small investment of the big return that you get, you pay for something once you use it forever. And that's what I did with my own training. I spent $100,000 learning from the best people I could find, and I'm using it forever. So let me introduce you to the Business Certainty Workshop series. And I call it that because it gives you so much certainty in your business that you stop thinking about your business completely on weekends. And I find the majority of business owners are still thinking about their business on weekends, thinking about work, thinking about tasks, worrying about bills, worrying about money, worrying about work, thinking about employee. They're still thinking at work about their work at home. When you have this certainty in your life from this training, then that no longer happens. And that's what I call it, the Business Certainty Workshop series. It's a complete management training course covering all 7 steps that I talked about in that implementation formula. So imagine a course where you receive training from a mentor who's assisted 500 plus businesses to make tens of millions of dollars more in profit. As I touched on earlier at the start, I got a client that is making $6 million a year. That's one out of the hundreds of clients that I work with. Just one client is making $6 million in net profit a year compared to what he used to make when I first met him, which is probably closer to 600,000. So that's an example where I've got so much experience and I love sharing that. You get complete ready-to-use systems. Now, very few people anywhere in the world will give you a completely finished system. It's usually, let's have a chat, we'll work out what you need to do, and then off you go and do it. And if you've had a business coach, that's nearly always how the conversation goes. You have a big, long chat for an hour, hour and a half on the phone or maybe face-to-face, have a big, long chat, and then it's off you go and create for me. And then you come back and you educate them about what you created. Well, I was a bit like that in my first 10 years as well, until I realized that people don't want to go and figure out how to do stuff themselves because it takes huge amounts of time. There's a week or 2 or 3 figuring out how to do one thing. It's like if you try and go and build the spreadsheets I've just shown you, well, it'll probably take you many years to build really, really effective spreadsheets. Mine have been evolved through experience and one-on-one with clients. So I give you those finished, evolved tools, team building tools, measuring tools, systems, templates, all sorts of things there. The other thing is that every business has at least 50 great strategies they can use to increase their profits, but they don't know what they are. And often they're thinking lead generation, whereas my strategies go across 21 different subjects. And their subjects, like conversion rate is one, lead generation is another, team building is another, recruitment is another. So many different strategies that I have. And I give you your 50 best strategies in this training. So you don't have to guess anymore. You already know. And you'll nod your head and say, yeah, right, Tim. Yeah, I really need to get those strategies because they're already guaranteed to make you money. You get customized spreadsheets. Now, the spreadsheets they're very easy to use because they come with video training and they come with me talking to you one-on-one. I do some one-on-one training and say, let's talk about your spreadsheets. Let's look at your profit and loss statement. Let's work out what your sale price needs to be. Here's a spreadsheet on how to sell at that profit margin. And I've had clients turning over $20 million that have drooled when they've seen my spreadsheet because it's just so simple, yet so effective at controlling profit margins at the time of sale. So you get all these different spreadsheets, all the ones I've shown you here for sales and marketing, for production, for cash flow, for that other one with the bar graph. You get that, you get the what if scenario, you get all these tools customized, ready to use for your business. You get 9 workbooks to read and refer to for years, and my clients do tell me, I read your workbook the other day, I was reading number 1, or I was reading number 5, or I was reading number 7, or whatever it was. You just keep, this is a course that you use forever. You get lots of email attachments. Some of them are not relevant for your industry. Maybe they're too big for the size of your business because I have various different spreadsheets depending on the size of your business. So they're not all relevant, but you get a lot of them. Word docs, and you get 7 of the best marketing books I've found that I recommend as well. You get 2 hours of my own one-on-one time to review your chart of accounts and set up your cost of sale so that we can determine your gross margin sale prices. Email support and review of your numbers. So it's step 3, which is measuring. I give you the spreadsheets. I ask you to fill them in. I show you how to set them up, and then you send them to me every week. And every week I'll look at your numbers and I'll give you some comments. I'll give you some suggestions. And I might say, look, if you did this, this, and this, and focus on putting these strategies into these 3 or 4 areas, I think your net profit should be about 200,000 higher in the next 3 to 5 months. And if it's not, I'm going to ask you why. And they say, do you agree with that? And they say, yeah, you're right. So that's what the power is of what I'm showing you. If I see your spreadsheets filled in, I'll show you what you need to do with the numbers and what strategies will improve them. And you get 4 months of that feedback. If you've got a commission salesperson or you need to hire one, most people don't set them up very well, and the salespeople discount, and then you're paying with money you don't have from that discount. So there's a way to do that really effectively, which I show you. It took me years to figure out how to build that, but that's a simple spreadsheet I show people. Plus, if you're thinking about profit share one day, you get a tool on how to do that properly as well. You get me to answer any and all your questions on anything to do with your business. It might be, Tim, I'm thinking about taking on a business partner. What do you think? And I'll say, what's the DISC profile? Go and do it, send it to me, and let's have a talk about it. Or I want to promote someone to be a supervisor. Which profile is best for a supervisor? Or what do you think would happen if I did this strategy? Do you think this is a good strategy? And I'll say, my experience with it is this or that. You're getting enormous intellectual property from me on any subject you can imagine that you want to ask me about. So the focus is on synergizing the 3 skills of management. The first skill is people. We need to get better at our people skills. We need to get better at measuring. We need to get better at systems. And then I show you how to put all these into weekly team meeting structures where once a week you meet with your people, you look at the numbers, and then you talk about systems, and you synergize all 3 of these. And that's where your profits really start to jump. So the combination of the 3 is what increases profit margins. If you don't combine the 3 with weekly team meetings, you'll find that all 3 of these individually don't grow the business very much. You put all 3 together, all sorts of great things happen, and it motivates your team. And this is the beginning of setting a business up to run without you, which is what McDonald's have got from perfecting these 3 areas. So some of the team building benefits and what you get included is you get the tools to DISC profile everyone. So you can DISC profile every employee you've ever got, ever likely to get for the rest of your life as a business owner. You get how to best lead and teach each DISC profile, because each profile is unique. And if you lead a D or an I or an S or a C in the same way as one of the other 3, you'll really irritate them, and it irritates you and irritates them. And then they don't do what you ask, then you get annoyed because they're not doing what you ask. It's all about that leading and teaching. You'll learn strategies to motivate your staff to become happier, more productive team members. You'll learn better teaching skills so your team learn fast what you do and how to free up your own time. How to make your team more accountable. I'm really big on we got to create accountability. Accountability creates productivity. And if you've ever had the joy of hiring someone, and you've done that numerous times, you'll know how time-intensive and frustrating that can be to go through that process, and then after a month or 3 you find that that person didn't work out and you've got to do it all over again. Or maybe you paid a recruitment company the 5 or 10,000 or whatever the ridiculous amount that they'd love to charge people these days, just to hire one person who doesn't work out 4 or 5 months later, or you need to go and do it again 4 or 5 months later. You've got to pay that thousands of dollars fee as well. So if you're sick of doing that and you recognize that to grow a business is all about having a great attitude team, then you'll really value this recruitment system. So you get a full recruitment system from the ad. Yes, the ad is ready to use in your business, except for 2 things you need to change. The recruitment system includes the qualifying questions, decision-making criteria, DISC profile, what DISC profile matches the role that you have in your business, and all that, and then you can knock it all over in about 3 hours as a process. It's extraordinary what difference that can make. I've had a client, a builder up at Mackay, hired 17 people in 6 weeks. And he told me before that he couldn't find good people in Mackay because they'd all gone to the mines. And when he was astounded to see he could get good people, he ran this ad, and he was running the same ad with 3 or 4 job descriptions and had so many people apply that he just replaced 17 people in 6 weeks. So very interesting stuff, what that's about. You get strategies for sales and marketing to increase your conversion rate by 20 to 300% in a month. How to maintain sales after raising your prices, very simple principles there. How to overcome those price shoppers that we think are very annoying people and waste their time. What your gross and net profit margin will be after a price rise, and if you put a price rise in, you can afford to lose sales as long as you don't drop profit and how to work that out is included as well. How to define your unique selling proposition. I touched on that a bit earlier. How to use social media marketing to leverage your marketing and automate it without much time of your own ongoing. And you get a tool, a spreadsheet that rates 155 different strategies on how well they work, their effectiveness, and the cost to implement them as well. So therefore, over the years that follow the training, then you've got all that information as well. And this is a strategy on how I generate new leads for my business, and I've generated over $1 million in sales using a concept called 90-degree marketing. That is one I kind of really evolved, that I learnt from Jay Abraham a long time ago, that very few people actually use it, or if they do, they don't even think about it, and they're actually using it without even thinking about it. So it's a very simple thing, but you get a lot of leads for your business for free. So will all this training and content work for your business? It's a very common question I'm asked. Tim, that's all great, but have you worked with someone in this industry? Well, my answer is often this. Have a look at some of the businesses I already have worked with to give you an idea. And these are retailers, manufacturing, service, and wholesale business, all the different sort of 4 industry sectors. And these clients, and these are only some of them, but all of them increase their profit 50 to 2,000% in less than 5 months, every single one of these. And that's not all of them. There's a lot of extras that I just don't really able to fit them on the list because it gets too small in font, so I didn't bother. But that just gives you an idea of the power of this content. So if it works for all them, it works for you. Now, as I said at the start, with the guy that ran Disney Corporation was paid $200 million a year because he was an extremely good manager. So this is management training. This is not technical industry training. Completely different thing. Management is what makes you the most money, not production skills. So the business certainty training, I've put it into a group and I'm doing it online. So that reduces some of my overheads, but I found that people learning and talking from each other and sharing experience helps everybody in that environment. It's this real synergy about it. So I do it online, and that doesn't matter where you are geographically. In fact, you could go overseas, because I ran a training with my clients from Cyprus once as an online group training. It was very interesting. It worked really well. Yet I was in Cyprus and they were here in Brisbane Metro. So you can do it really, really effectively wherever you are. And we do 3.5 hours every fortnight. We do a bit of a break in between. And it's online video, and we do 15 sessions over 7 months. It's every fortnight. We talk, we meet. I give you workbooks. You go through the workbooks, you're filling them in, and you've got reading material from them. Then we review that at the next session, make sure that you're using, answer any questions, and then teach you the next session, and away we go. So together we go through about 16 slides. Now this webinar is about 38 slides to give an example, and it's me talking the whole time, because I found when people first get on a webinar, you have all sorts of problems with mute. You can't handle volumes of people on a webinar, so you've got to mute everyone. It's the only way to make it work. But because this training is not for 20 or 50 or 100 people, it's only for 5 maximum, I unmute and everyone talks and we're all on video. So it becomes a very, very different experience from doing it this way. It's very interactive, and there's only 16 slides, so we've got lots of time to everyone have a chat about things. So how the session schedule works is we kick off in the first week and we talk about building your vision and leverage. Next session, 2 weeks later, we talk about team building and recruitment. Then 2 weeks after that, we talk about team building and recruitment, and we're reviewing as we go. Then 2 sessions on the magic of measuring, 2 sessions on planning to achieve your goals. We do a review about halfway through. Then we get into systems for profit growth, 2 sessions on that. 2 sessions on secrets of sales and marketing, where I give you the most advanced strategies you'll find anywhere in the world on sales and marketing. We'll talk about management, the final phase. So how do you manage and get out of production and sales and admin and finance, and even set yourself up to get out of management. And I'll show you how to hire a general manager in that section as well. Then we do a review and celebrate your great results and your learning experiences. That's kind of the session. So it runs over those 15 sessions over those 29 weeks. And the good thing is that you're not left to figure out, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff you've told me. This course is the most practical course you'll see anywhere in the world, because I give you the exact things that you need to do between sessions and the how-to instructions on how to do exactly what it is that I'm asking you to do. You haven't been left to figure it out and create stuff on your own. And if something happens and you do miss a session, that's okay, because I video it. The videos are not available forever. They're only temporary for you to catch up on what you learned, because this intellectual property is unique in the world. I've never seen anyone, and I've never had anyone tell me that they know of someone that has more content than what I have. So I'm cautious about letting this content out for that reason. So the videos are only temporary and they're up for a very short time, and then use them. So summing up what you get from the whole training, if you compared it to anything else in the market, I'd say, yeah, good luck with the comparison, just to give you an idea. So for a start, you get 52.5 hours in 7 months. It's not dragged out over 1 or 2 years. Like business coaching is typically sign here for 12 months, thanks, and we'll do an hour a week on the phone. So it's not like that, and it's online, and we're talking and seeing each other. You get 2 individual one-hour phone calls with myself. If you're, we can do it on video if you like, but you get that included. So I'm actually spending a fair chunk of my time, and if it goes longer, it goes longer. I don't mind. It's until you grasp and understand how to use this content, which is the spreadsheets, and how to make them work for your business. You get 7 months of email support. Ask me a question anytime by email. Nearly always my answer will be, have you read your workbook? Because the questions I get asked, I've been asked hundreds of times, and I include them in the workbooks for that reason. But I don't mind if people email and say, do you know about this, or do you recommend this? I go, sure, yes, no, whatever the answer is. So you get the email support. You get access to me, in other words. Sometimes people ring me. I don't mind having a brief chat on the phone as well, because sometimes it's very relevant. I have a very open relationship with my clients. So you get the 9 workbooks with written and video instructions. You get a complete team building system. Try and buy a recruitment system online. It doesn't even exist. I've tried. I looked for it and couldn't even find one. You can't even buy a recruitment system online, or a team building system for that matter. You just can't really buy that sort of stuff. So a recruitment system is probably worth about $5,000 to $10,000, because that's what recruitment companies want to charge you just to do it once. So that's a pretty valuable thing included. You get 39 pages of disc profile content. So instead of trying to figure out people's disc profiles, how to sell to them, how to lead them, how to teach them, it's all included in this. I've already written that for you, save you having to try and find it elsewhere. You get your 50+ strategies identified for your business. So think of that as a business growth plan, where if you said to an expert anywhere in the marketplace, can you do a business growth plan, not just marketing, but business growth strategies? Can you find my best 50 and I'll pay you for that? You'll pay $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 for that as well, but you get that included in this training. To hire a general manager is not like hiring any other person, and it's something you may not want to do for a year or 5, but somewhere down the track you might want to do it, and you've got a full recruitment system on how to do that, including the job description and the reporting requirements and the KPIs for that general manager. That's all included in this training. Salesperson commission spreadsheet, profit share systems as well. There's probably $1,000 worth of tangible value in that as well. No business coaching program anywhere in the world comes remotely close to giving all this content. And yet the average business coach will charge you about $36,000 for the year, sometimes more, sometimes less. Someone who might have had 5 or 10 years experience will typically charge you $3,000 a month. Like you to pay 3 months in advance and lock you in for a 12-month, if not 2-year time frame. So comparing it to that, even though they don't give you anywhere as much value, I could say, well, this is a $36,000 course, thanks. But because I've done it in a systematic way, and I can do it in 7 months, and I'm leveraging how I do it, I can drop the price on that, which is good for you. I'm only looking for 5 business owners. I don't want 50. I don't want 25 right now. I'm just happy to get 5 and kick it off as a group with 5 and look at other groups I might kick off down the track. I'm not looking for 50 people right now. I'm just looking for 5. Minimum criteria for eligibility. I'd like you to have been in business for 3 years, because it takes a few years in business to really appreciate how many problems and how tough it can be in business, and you're really looking for solutions then. When people haven't been in business long, they don't really appreciate this content, and then they don't use it. And if they don't use it, they don't get the spectacular results. It gives me good testimonials and referrals and things like that. So I prefer it that people have had 3 years experience. That doesn't have to be a minimum, but if they can afford it, I don't mind. But I tend to work on that 700,000 turnover as a minimum as well. And if they're over that, fantastic. If they're under that, let's have a chat anyway. Maybe it works for you. I've had people with smaller businesses than that, a lot smaller in fact, And as long as they can afford it and they're not going to pull out with some drama or some cash flow issue or something, then it's fine. Because to stop the program, you lose a lot of momentum, which is what builds throughout the training. So I don't want that to get in the way. And to be involved with it, I want to have a chat to you first. It's a phone discussion about you and your business. And I just want to have a chat to you and find out where you're coming from, gauge your attitude, see if it matches you. Some people it doesn't. Sometimes I say, look, I don't feel you're ready. Look, you've got some other dramas going on. Usually it's, oh, I've got these dramas, and I say, well, that's why you need to do the training, because these training will solve that problem you have permanently, not with a Band-Aid, permanently. Do the training and let's solve that problem for you. So depending on what the discussion is about, let's have a chat about your business. You can go to this website, wprofits.tv/success. That's another website that I don't use for anything else but that purpose at the moment until I transfer it over to the new domain. But if you go there, it'll just give you some background questions, and it just tells me a bit about your background, so it saves a bit of time in our meeting. So the business certainty training, the value of this is well over $36,000. One of my alliance partners, CFO on Call, which is probably you're here because you could be invited through their database, they say that the management reporting tools and the spreadsheets alone are worth the price of the course. They said, we've never seen anything like what you put together in spreadsheets and reporting. So it's good feedback that I've had. As the training is online and in a group, plus you get my 2 hours of one-on-one, I'm leveraging because I've got multiple people that I'm working with. So the training can be at a greatly reduced price. So the first 5 businesses only, as first in gets the spots, confirm with a $100 deposit. That says that you're definitely coming. Your tax-deductible investment is just $1,760 per month, times your 7 months. So you're paying as you go, and just a $100 deposit secures your place. So to start benefiting, I just need to get some basic background about your business on the web page. I'll email you a couple of times. I'm available to talk about your business soon, and I mean tomorrow, this afternoon possibly, or Wednesday at the latest, because you'll forget a lot of the content within a week, and that's what happens. So I want to act on this and like you to act on it very, very soon. And if you can give me a couple of times, or I'll email you a couple of times, just confirm one. Let's start talking fast. We'll talk more about the content's relevance to your business and profit potential, because I like to know your profit potential before you come in. I've had a few clients saying, wow, I can't wait to have you in the training. I'm thinking a few $100,000 increase in profit's probably very achievable for you. So sometimes I can have that chat. Depends on your background. There's no hard sell. I'm not interested in pushing anyone into this training. You have to want to attend, and that because it needs commitment, and that's how you get great results. If I've got to really persuade you and work on you to come, you're probably not going to, you're going to have resistance to the content anyway. I prefer you start saying, yeah, Tim, this looks good, answer me some questions, but I'm reasonably keen, tick my boxes on my question, and if they tick, then I'm happy to do it. That's the conversation I like to have with people. So it's for open-minded, good decision makers who want to add that $100,000 to $700,000 of their net profit and have more certainty in their business and life. So if you've got any questions, now's a good time. If you've got any simple questions now, feel free, ask now, or we can have a chat at a later date if you like. I much prefer when I'm doing live training because it's two-way dialogue. I feel like I am talking all the time because I've had to mute you, unfortunately. But if you've got any questions, feel free, just type them in the box. But this is the next training that's kicking off, if that was one of your questions. I want to kick it off Wednesday next week. We kick off at 8:30 in the morning, go for 3.5 hours, and then every second Wednesday morning from that point on. Full schedule I can email to you. It's got basic details on it, registration and all the dates on it, but that's pretty much the dates. The first month payment is due 6 days before the first, which means you need to pay this week so we can get you into next week, so we can get this training underway. And so see how other attendees have profited from it as well. Go to the website and have a look at some of the results. There's a video on the home page. There's a testimonial page. I say go to the testimonial page and just have a listen to some of the other business owners. And they're everyday businesses. They're not some specific super niche industry that's going to always make money. They're your typical renovators or tradies or your basic businesses that you see everywhere. That's the sort of businesses that are getting great benefits. Sometimes I get some really uncommon ones. I've had dental prosthesis come through the training and stone floor restorers and all sorts of strange industries I didn't know existed. But just have a look at the video and get comfortable with the content from the testimonials. And remember, first in gets the spots. Maximum 5 businesses only. The website address is wprofits.tv/success. If you'd like to fill that in, we can have a friendly chat. And it is a friendly chat. There's no hard sell. I've got no interest in teaching hard salesmanship. My clients win sales effortlessly through building relationships, building rapport, and being open and honest. So that's exactly what I do the same. I like to work with people and build a relationship and then work with them on that level. So that's what the training's all about. And if you've got any questions right now, feel free, ask away. If you're wondering if it works for your business, then that's one of the most common questions. Then you can ask me those sort of questions. If not, just go to that website, fill in your details, and I'd love to have a chat to you, because I watch how people hesitate with decisions that can make them so much money and make them super, super successful. And these are sort of one of them. And when I first started in business, I wish I had information like this. And all my clients that come through say, "Oh, Tim, this is exactly what I've been looking for years. I'm so glad you've included in the training." Because there's so many things that we don't know. We can't even remember what we're looking for sometimes. So that's what this training includes. So have a think about that. I'll finish up the webinar now. Thanks for joining me, and I'll look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thank you.